the kitchen of the cabin and around the world, this is Voices from the Solitude, a podcast about the coronavirus and gaming. Today, I'm talking to Becky Ottery from Eclectic Games. We talk about the challenges of running a game shop during the crisis. So, I'm here with Becky Ottery from Eclectic Games, and that's in Reading, I believe.
Yep, that's where we are. Have been for the last 14 years.
So, I want to start with just tell us a bit about Eclectic Games, why you started it, how long it's been going, sort of what service you give to the community, that sort of thing.
We've been a business for 14 years. We started out because I was working for the previous game shop in Reading when it closed down and had really quite enjoyed it and went, Reading can actually support this business quite well if we do it properly. So we got together a small amount of investment, put in a ton of hard work, and jumped in to provide the local community with their hobby store. We've been focused on board games almost from the beginning, which makes us quite unusual as a business because most people get into the hobby either through the cards sides of things or the minis sides of things. In more recent years, if you like board games, your dream is to open a board game cafe. Back then, board game cafes didn't exist. We kind of did what board game cafes do in terms of having a library of games you can borrow and play, but without the food service element, because I hate cooking and really didn't want to do all the food prep stuff.
And so what are the challenges? I mean, taking coronavirus aside, what are the challenges of running a game shop? And especially, like, what are the margins and what do you need to do to get people to come in through the door, especially in the age of the internet?
You need to offer something the internet can't provide, which is absolutely face-to-face time and reasons to be face-to-face and socializing. Again, when we started, we made sure we had areas where people could play games in store and a library of games they could play, because it's really important that a game shop is more than just a transactional retailer. If you're a transactional retailer, you should be looking for as cheap as possible the online efficiencies, because realistically, the only thing you can seriously compete on is price. You can hold as much stock in your warehouse, you can have the best delivery contract, but so can everyone else. So online only really has price as a tool to compete with. Bricks and mortar stores have so many more things they can do to engage with their customers. It's the friendly part of friendly local game store that is really, really important. You should be professional. You should hold stock. You should have prices that are recommended retail. Do not go above them. In general, it's a terrible idea. People find it hard enough to cope with the idea that they might actually have to pay recommended retail when it's available at 20 to 30% off. Don't go above it. Price is an issue, but you have to tie it to your value proposition. Making it clear to your customers that what you are doing costs, that having a physical store has overheads, having staff to assist them with their choices and make recommendations has costs, and this is significant. Having a place to play the games is, again, a cost. All of this is supported by selling at proper recommended margins. I mean, make no mistake, the board game trade does not have, oh my God, these are sofa level margins. If you look at the sofas, if you ever buy a sofa at full price, the sofa retailer is getting something like 1,000% on their margin. Game stores tend to run on a gross margin of about somewhere between 30 and 40%. And that's gross margin before all the overheads. If you look at the net profit, which is something you get when you've paid off all the loans and paid all the staff and done all the other things, you can get somewhere between, I would assume an average for most game stores of between 4 and 7% gross profit, and a really, really good one might get as much as 10%. So, yeah, it's not a business to get into to get rich in a financial sense. You can get extremely rich in really good people in your life if you do it right.
And you've been around 14 years, so you've seen the rise of the internet, and you talk about sort of, the expertise and the advice. And I assume that a lot of this, people have gone from game shops to YouTube and things like this now. What changes have you seen, and how have you had to adapt over the 14 years you've been in business?
We've seen a massive rise of content creators who have strong opinions. We have seen a number of customers who have substituted those opinions for their own. We've seen more and more of what I would call the general public moving into gaming, and that is the thing that makes me oh so happy. Because if you get someone new walking into the shop and they look round, and after they've seen that you've got Monopoly and Scrabble and Risk and some jigsaw puzzles, and they know that, yes, this is a game store that they recognise, they look at the rest of the shop, and one of the most common things is, I never knew there were so many games. And that is the customer I'm looking for, because they're at the start of their journey. They're the people that I can teach that modern games are brilliant, and we can take them along at whatever pace they feel comfortable with for exploring this new world. And as they get further into it and learn more and discover the YouTube channels and get a Board Game Geek account and so on, eventually they stop needing us as much. And that's totally fine, because by then 10 new people have walked through the door and I'm helping them on the way. Comparing by analogy, which is something I do a lot, ski instructors are not generally terribly worried about the people that are doing black runs down the mountain. They're the ones who are helping people get on the baby slopes and discover how to do it. And there's a continual flow of them. It's wonderful. The enfranchised gamer is someone who has been taught by gaming how to accurately assess value, opportunity cost, things like this. It very rapidly leads to a quick look round and go, well, I could pay this many resources for this thing, or I could pay 3 less if I get it from over here. What's the opportunity cost? What's the benefit? Make that decision. If I've done my job properly in the leading up to this enfranchised state, then they still have strong residual good feelings for the store and will come and buy from us if there's not a significantly huge price difference. We tend to find, as a random data point, that after you get above about 50 quid on a board game, that's when it kicks in that the amount of money you are saving by buying online is significant, because that's usually enough to get a whole second game in the sort of small card game category, which is something that's well worth considering.
And so, moving on to the current situation then. So you've had to close, and I assume that this has been government mandated. Did you close before the government sort of locked down the country, or did you wait for the government recommendation to do so?
We had closed down our gaming spaces before we had to government mandated close down the shop, because we'd looked at it and gone, yeah, we have no desire to be a transmission vector for something that is absolutely highly infectious. So we were socially responsible in terms of let's not have lots of people crammed together in a games room, because this is absolutely a way for the virus to spread and we don't want that. But we were still trading with appropriate precautions of wiping down things people touch, as with not bacterial wipes, sterilizing wipes, and so on, before the mandated shutdown came. And since then, we have been operating to ramp up our website sales, because whilst we have a website and it has our stock on it, historically it's mostly done its job as a here is how to pre-order your tickets for all the events we run. And about 90% of the traffic that went through it was let's book our tickets for the Magic pre-releases, the Pokemon tournaments, those kinds of things. Overall, the website accounted for less than 10% of our turnover, possibly less than 5%, as I think about it. This has now changed because it's the only way we can get products to people, and therefore there is a massive back office job going on with staff working from home with laptops to go, right, upload the products, upload the descriptions, get this there. And as the person who is capable of walking into the shop, I get to be the one who goes in and packs up all the parcels to send out and hands them off to the delivery driver at a safe distance. And hopefully they then get to the people that have ordered them. I have had at least one round of my customers come back and go, lockdown looks so much more survivable because now I've got some games. So I'm pleased about that.
And so how are you doing, and what is your sort of optimism for the future? Have the internet sales ramped up? Are they keeping your head above water?
On their own, they probably wouldn't. Fortunately, we are in a position to access the grant that the government has put out, and that should see us through the next 2 months reasonably. I've reached out to my landlord. I've reached out to anybody that we have loan payments with to go, can we defer things? We are actively keeping everybody who has an interest in us staying open as either a tenant, a customer, informed of what's going on so that they can work with us, because overall, people want us to succeed, either to continue paying rent for the rest of our lease, or to continue paying off the loans, not default, or to continue as a customer so that they can keep selling to us. And it helps that absolutely everyone is in this together. It's not one of those occasions where, oh dear, there's been a random disaster for a single game store. This is countrywide, and everyone is working to try and minimize the damage. I am hopeful that as and when we get back to a people are allowed to gather in more than twos, we will see people coming back to events. I don't think we will see large events running until 2021, but I think that game stores are probably in a position where they can help the transition back from frightened and imprisoned population that's afraid of going out to, if we're sensible, this can be managed. Because I think after 8 to 12 weeks of being locked in their own homes, people are going to be terrified of the idea of contracting the virus and so on. So the ability to go out in small, controlled, safe environments like 12 people maximum playing some games at a game store should be something we should work towards. And it's going to be really quite easy to keep up the hygiene precautions that are now hopefully ingrained in people, because certainly I came back from a convention just before all this kicked off, and I didn't even have the usual, oh, I've picked up a random cold, because everybody had upped their hygiene game. It was great. Con crud could be eliminated.
So finally then, what can we do as consumers, as the dreaded term content creators, as people part of the gaming community? What can we do for not just Eclectic Games, but for other local game stores around the world? What can we do to help to make sure that the lights don't go out?
If your local game store has a web presence and has the ability to sell you gift cards or things like that, consider buying them so that when you have a random birthday present or something like that later on, you can go, oh yes, I can get them a game. Everything that you can buy from them will bring money in and help. It's entirely fine to buy from online stores who are purely online. They have to survive as well, and they may not qualify for some of the government grants and so on, depending on what type of business they are. Mostly, it's remember that the game stores are there. Stay in contact. If they set up a Discord server or some online things, keep paying attention to them and staying there. Be patient with any deliveries, because we're all working under restrictions. The delivery companies are massively overloaded, and it's affecting not just delivery from store to customer, it's affecting delivery from distribution to store and from product coming in from publishers to distribution. Everything is disrupted. Mostly, it's about being kind to everybody you can be kind to, and keep the social distancing regulations. They're there for a reason. The more we observe them, the more we flatten out the curve of infection and stop so many people getting them all at once that we can't cope. And when they start easing restrictions, which they will eventually, don't assume that everything is all over and go back to what would be defined as risky behavior. Treat it sensibly. We are all going to get through this one way or another. Some stores will close, most won't. It will be tricky, but if you can afford to buy at the slightly higher price from your friendly local game store, and they have what you want, this is a very important point. It's on the game store to stock what you want. Then consider buying from them as opposed to going, oh, it's £3 or £4 cheaper and delivered from Amazon. Amazon should be really capable of surviving this. Your friendly local game store probably is as well capitalized, let's say.
Brilliant. Well, Becky, Ottery, thank you very much for your time, and fingers crossed your optimism isn't misplaced.
We'll see you all on the other side.
If you want to support content like this, you can go to patreon.com/5G4D. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, and if you can, stay at home.